Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Emmy the Cat Lady, and we are back after an impromptu week off, so I do appreciate the kind messages and patience, you guys, after everything. Life just threw quite a lot at me and my family last week all at once, but things are heading in the right direction now. My dad's home and doing really well, and my pain issues are starting to settle back down again. So we're here in Point Lookout for what's going to be the last kind of spooky season locations in Fallout. So there's quite a few that I'd like to kind of cover today. Point Lookout itself really, I think, lends itself well to spooky, Halloweeny. It does definitely have a kind of horror game setting almost, and all the dead trees and the mist and the creepy locals and the mad cult at the cathedral and all that kind of stuff. And Point Lookout is an area that has an awful lot of history. So it was the landing spot for the English explorer John Smith back in 1612, and one of the early English settlements of the New World, as that was called at the time. But more recently it became the location of a detention camp for Chinese Americans that were suspected of spying on the US during the Sino-American War, and that's up here kind of right at the very top in the centre of the map really is the Turtle Dove detention camp. And the locals around here became quite isolationist, and they didn't trust the government, and even started attacking volunteers who worked at a disaster relief outpost here that was meant to provide aid for the new plague that emerged shortly before the bombs fell. No direct nukes were dropped here, though the radiation has kind of entered the swamps and the water courses around here from the Potomac River, which obviously feeds out of Washington DC, which was a big target for the nukes, understandably. So that means that the locals have kind of mutated in kind of a unique way, and there's also plenty of feral ghouls and mirelurks that call the place home now. We've got some creepy people. Obadiah Blackhall still lives here in his mansion, and he's involved with the Eldritch Horrors. He worships Ugg-Kwall-Toth, which is the entity that's also connected to the Dunwich Borers Company as well. But there's a few other interesting things to find. So the first one here we've just walked over to is the Ofie Clan plot. So it's kind of here. So this is the kind of landing point, Pilgrim's Landing, and the kind of theme park and things. So it's just to the kind of northwest of the Pilgrim's Landing, and it is a little cemetery, so presumably all belonging to members of the Ofie clan. So sort of one family that have their own sort of cemetery, their own little graveyard where all their people are buried. So great place for spooky season. However, if we look in the middle here, we've got a couple of shovels, and I think that's a bottle of whiskey, a bottle of scotch, and then we've got this casket that's been dug up, which has a skeleton, a teddy bear, some toy cars, and also some Salisbury steak for some reason, and a medical brace. So it's obviously been visited by grave robbers who even left their shovels behind. And the toys present in the casket do kind of suggest that this is a child's grave. The medical brace as well suggests that they died of some illness, potentially, of some kind. So it's kind of a sad story, and you do wonder who would have come and dug this skeleton up, and why. What were they expecting to find? What would somebody want with the bones of a long dead child? Probably not something good. It does make you wonder. I don't think you can really make out much of the text on these gravestones, I think, which that one has creepy face in it, and there's one over there that has a creepy face in it as well. But yeah, so somebody decided they needed to dig up this child. Questions have to be asked there. There is another one that's kind of interesting, so we're going to head over to a very different location, so bear with me. Okay, so we've moved off to the coast. You can see the lighthouse in the distance there. which is kind of way down here at the Calvert Mansion. So we're here just outside the Coastal Grotto, and you can see that there's some, well, I think in the States they call them buoys, but we call them buoys. But the things that kind of float above the water to mark its location. So this one is kind of south-southeast of the Coastal Grotto, to find some more interesting bones. So if we reach, I'm pretty sure this is the one that we're looking for. And then we're gonna head under the water. Look at this. So, yeah, there is a human skeleton here as well, but there's also this guy with tiny arms, big legs. Look at those toes. Look at that. And big long tail. So this is a T-Rex skeleton is what this is. You know, razor sharp teeth, massive head, tiny arms. Yeah. So you can tell just from the way the pelvis sits, it's kind of in that evolving from walking on four legs to walking on two legs. Because the pelvis sits quite differently compared to the human pelvis. But yeah, we've got a T-Rex skeleton down here. There's also this person who does have a lever action rifle somewhere. There's some ammo boxes. Oh, there is. Yeah, so there's a lever action rifle here. There's some ammo boxes, and there's a safe that you can break into as well. If you can stay under the water that long. But yeah, we've got a T-Rex skeleton that's here under the water. So given that it's so close to the surface of the seabed, given that it's going to have been dead for a few million years at this point, but possibly erosion of the seabed from the water, and with everything changing after the bombs, that maybe kind of gradually revealed it. Or perhaps it's a Jurassic Park situation and then this poor soul managed to kill it but also went down with it and died here. Who knows? But it's kind of a cool little find, and it's not something that, you know, it's not a marked location or anything, so it's I only discovered that this was even a thing very recently, but it's quite cool that that's a thing. So yeah, there is a T-Rex skeleton, and we don't really know what happened to this person. They obviously were down here with some guns and a safe, so yeah, not much explanation, but it's cool that it's there, so that's quite fun. So we're just going to head back up to the surface. I put God mode on so that I don't, you know, drown by accident when dealing with these things, but yeah, there you go. There's a swamp lurk ahead, so I'm going to head to another location in Point Lookout, so I will see you just shortly. Here we go. So this one is a marked location. It's up in this kind of northwest corner. So Sacred Bog entrance is there, Grower's Shack, and then the Trapper's Shack. So yeah, not very nice places around here, like trash heap and flooded sinkhole. This is a jet crash site. So yeah, we can see we've got this plane that has crashed here, and there's a very interesting story about this place. So we've got some ammo boxes and things. There are typically a couple of ghouls hanging around here. I'm pretty sure I saw one that looked like it might have been a reaver actually. Is that this guy over here? Yeah, there we go. We've got a reaver. Because this character's level 20, we do have one of these guys here. So basically, this was a military plane. It was a US Navy jet, and the pilot ejected himself from the plane and got himself stuck in a tree. He lost his rifle and was killed by the locals. But someone discovered this crash site from the detention camp nearby and went to collect the black box, which is obviously the indestructible recording of a plane's last moments for the purpose of investigation in the case of aviation accidents, things like that. So the soldier was attacked and killed by the hostile locals, but he killed some of them, as you can see. So we do have somebody here surrounded by 10mm pistol, a bunch of ammo, first aid boxes and things, but There's also a lot of axes and shovels and a bunch of skeletons as well as the ghouls. So he defended himself pretty well, but unfortunately it was not enough. But yeah, lots of kind of good loot here, but we should be able to find the black box recorder as well, so we can take that and we can have a listen to it. Or a read of it. Yes.
Aircom, we have multiple flashpoints on horizon. Come back. Air Command, USN 350, requesting landing vector. Have 0 ceiling visibility and low on state. Somebody get me a landing clearance. State 1+1, 0 to splash. Have 0 read on outer marker. This is USN 350. I'm blind out here. Attempting emergency landing over water. INS pinger active on distress band. Flaps up, descent to 8 cherubs. 3 green over. 5 cherubs, tree line up. Throttle easy on 4 lights. Prepping to pull the loud handle.
Yeah, so a lot of kind of aviation technology, like technical terms used in that recording, but it's quite harrowing. So the pilot's seeing some flashpoints on the horizon. Should be pretty obvious what those are. And he's looking for what's going on and a landing clearance, but nobody is getting back to him on his radio. Nobody's kind of communicating with him, so he's becoming increasingly frantic. And you might not know what a lot of these terms are. I did have to kind of get the definitions myself, because I don't really know that much about aviation. But obviously the flashpoints are going to be the nuclear bombs going off in the distance, because that's what happens is there's an extremely bright flash that can be seen for a long distance before the shockwave and the mushroom cloud develops. So because, you know, light moves faster than anything else, so that's what you would see first, and you could see that over quite a significant distance. So when he says low on state, that means that his fuel is low. 1+1, 0 to splash means there's enough fuel for about an hour and 10 minutes before he would have to crash land the plane. The INS pinger is a way of broadcasting the position of a crash landing so that, again, an investigation can take place in the event of a crash landing. And cherubs mean 100 feet, so 8 cherubs is 800 feet, so he's obviously talking about his altitude, and then down to 5 cherubs, which is 500 feet. So that's him talking about how he's making his descent. And then the 3 green refers to the landing gear deploying correctly, while 4 lights means the glide path lights are correct. And prepping to pull the loud handle means that the pilot was using his ejection seat, which he did. And it cuts off after that, but you probably saw this in the distance from there, so you can see the parachute has caught in this tree. And this is going to be our pilot's who had an assault rifle and a combat helmet. And there's also an axe wedged into the tree. So presumably that's what happened, is that the parachute got caught in the tree. He got stuck and couldn't get himself free. And when the locals came and put an end to things for him. So yeah, poor guy. Didn't really end well for him. But the location's quite interesting. There's a lot of loot, there's a lot of punga fruit as well. But if you're a high level, you do need to be prepared for the possibility of feral ghoul reavers. My character on this save file's level 20, I think, so reavers can start spawning at that point. I think it's kind of level 18 that they start spawning on a regular basis. But yeah, so it's, you know, quite a mess here. Obviously the pilot didn't have a great ending, and he was obviously in the air at the time the bombs fell, because he couldn't get in touch with any kind of air traffic control or anything like that, or to presumably the ship or the base that he'd flown from. And then somebody came along to get the black box and got surrounded and defended themselves fairly well, but not quite well enough for them to survive in the end, unfortunately. But there's a ton of good loot around here, so it's definitely a place that's worth a visit. But, you know, a lot of tragic endings for people in this area as well. So, yeah, very interesting, and definitely a creepy scene to come across, you know, that you've got this one guy propped up against the plane with his guns, and then there's just all these skeletons and axes and things surrounding it. So, yeah, a bit of a sad story. And then the final one, this one is the most interesting one, so we're gonna go and look into something that does have a very dark history, so I will meet you there in just a second. Okie dokie, here we are. So just a short walk south to the Ark and Dove Cathedral. I'd set a custom marker, but for some reason I'm having a bit of a glitch time with the custom map marker because it keeps taking me off in the wrong direction. Maybe it's because I had just had a lobotomy, I don't know. But we're here at the Herzog Mine, so you can tell that that's where you are because there's a mine cart outside. And this one is a place that has a really dark story behind it. And I mean, being underground, it can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. You know, it feels quite claustrophobic. You've got that crushing weight of all the rock and dirt above your head, the darkness. The dampness, you know, the air tends not to be... Who was that? Yeah, the air tends not to be very fresh, so they're creepy places to be, and working in those conditions is probably not fun either. But when the boss mistreats the workers, something's going to have to give eventually. And we can see a lot of skeletons dotted about. Be wary because there are traps in this place as well. And some spooky noises. We'll get to that. But you can make your way through and you can see that there's tunnels that look like they've collapsed and things. So Herzog was the person that owned this mine. And he treated the miners very badly, so they did what workers do when they want better working conditions. They went on strike, you know, which is reasonable action when you're getting mistreated by your employer and you want better conditions. That keeps... yeah, there's definitely some creepy noises here. I've got a dead guy in a mine cart, more dead people, so yeah, there's a lot of skeletons around here. So the miners went on strike. So what happened was that Mr. Herzog decided to basically kill them all. So he blew up the mine with dynamite and killed all his workers. So that didn't really make it... Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that was a camera flash and now somebody's throwing grenades and baseballs at me. That was a clever one. It started firing baseballs and then sent a grenade. Very clever. Yeah, so he blew them all up. So obviously for other people, they're not going to want to go and work for somebody like that, you know? Where if you disagree with your working conditions, then you're just going to get blown up for it. No. Oh, explosions. Yeah, so understandable. People didn't want to work for him. So the mine ended up being abandoned. So Herzog ended up hanging himself. And we should be able to find him. But yeah, you can see we've got sledgehammers and shovels and things. And yet more skeletons. And obviously the locals have decided that this place is haunted, and we've had some funny little occurrences as we've made our way through here. Weird voices, babies crying. Interesting. Yeah. So if we head in here, we're brave enough, we'll reach Miner's Rest and we're gonna meet someone very interesting. Here we go. Hello.
You made it past my traps? I mean, get out of here, lady. Aren't you afraid the ghost will get you?
Say hello to Kenny, known as Latchkey Kenny. Latchkey is a term that's used for kids that basically have to raise themselves because their parents are absent. So this is Kenny, and he's like, do you think the ghost's going to get you? He was born to some of the swamp folk, but he was born unlike them. They rejected him. They thought there was something wrong with him. So he ran away from home, and he ended up setting up in this mine because the swamp folk avoid the place. So you cut the crap, kid. Like she wasn't scaring anybody.
Yeah, you better scram. If he looks you in the eyes, your brain will melt.
Sure. Okay, so yeah, was that you?
So what if it was? I've bagged meaner than you, and I'll do it again.
I'm not gonna hurt you.
Well, alright. But any funny business, and I'll pop you one.
Sure thing.
My name's Kenny, and I'm the boss of this mine.
Okay, so yeah, Kenny lives here because it keeps him away from the swamp folk that they want to attack him. So you can ask him about himself and he'll kind of tell you his story, but we can also ask him about the mine.
Old man Herzog's mine hole isn't much, but it's home.
So what about old man Herzog?
He was a mean old man. Owned this mine 1,000,000 years ago. Made the miners work real hard and didn't give them any money or food for their kid. One day, a bunch of miners sat down and just stopped working. Old man Herzog, he didn't like that. Not a bit. So he blew them all up with 1,000,000 tons of dynamite.
It's a lot of dynamite.
No one wanted to work in the mine after that. Then old Herzog came down here and hung himself.
Lovely.
They say his angry ghost still haunts the mine. It doesn't scare me, though.
Okay, you're a brave kiddo. So yeah, obviously there's a bit of kind of childlike exaggeration in that story, but yeah, basically that, you know, the miners weren't treated well, so they went on strike, and Herzog just decided to blow them up instead of giving them better working conditions. And it backfired, so he ended up hanging himself. So yeah, he's obviously set himself up quite well.
I was getting tired of that anyway.
So tell me about yourself.
Did you know I once bagged a mirror 10 feet tall?
Sure, okay.
Anybody ever say you talk too much?
Aye, okay. Right, this seems like a good hideout.
I don't know, lady. You didn't try to kill me, and you seem pretty nice for a grown-up. But still, how do I know I can trust you?
Yeah, so you can say there must be some way to prove I'm on your side, and aren't you lonely? Or you can use child at heart perk. But we're not going to do that because I think this is interesting. So there must be some way to prove I'm on your side. Aren't you lonely?
I used to have Kenny Bear around, but he fell down the big shaft back there. It's too scary for me to go get him. Maybe you can, though.
Sure. What do you mean scary?
I don't go back there much. It's real dark, and there's lots of critters. You should be fine, though.
Okay. So, yep, we're going to go and rescue
thanks.
Kenny Bear.
I dropped him near the shaft, so he's probably at the bottom.
Okay, on it. I'll see you in a bit.
Sure. See ya.
Oh, so, yeah, it's... You know, he's obviously still a very, very young kiddo. So now we need to find the mine shaft. And there's... I don't know why there's a lawnmower in here, but there is a bunch more skeletons. Interesting. But yeah, so Kenny has lost his Kenny Bear, which is, you know, obviously a teddy bear, but that's the way we came in. That's a puddle of water. And a tunnel. I don't know where that goes, but I don't think that's anywhere we can go. So it must be this way. Yep, black damp shaft. That's where we need to go. So yeah, you can see there's lots of like fungus here. Glowing fungus. There's skeleton. There. I think this is the way to get back up. Interesting. So yeah. You can hear there's something moving around down there. Look at all the mirelurk eggs. And mirelurks. But yeah, here is Kenny Bear. So we have rescued Kenny Bear. So just gonna deal with these stupid crabs. And the not so much crab-like crabs. They're not really crabs, but yeah. Here he is. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch. Some of this will probably be stuff that the mirelurks have brought in here, but here is Old Man Herzog, who, you know, did something horrible and didn't want to face the consequences, so he took himself out. So there's a bunch of pre-war money, which is obviously in his pre-war hat, and a bottle of moonshine, so maybe he did that for a bit of courage to do this. There we go. So, you know, this is what happens if you treat your workers badly and then decide to murder them. It's just not going to go well for you, really. That's the important thing. Yeah. Right, where are we going now? Oh, there's more mirelurks. Right, can you jump up? Right, there we go. Yeah, so you have to make your way past this massive mirelurk nest to get back out. And there's some brain fungus, which you can't use in this game, but it exists. There we go, and that brings us back up to where we started from, so we can go back and give Kenny Bear back to Kenny. So yeah, now we've found Herzog's fate, we can go back here and see Kenny, give him his bear, and then Kenny agrees to let you use this as your own player housing, so you can store stuff here, you can use the extra bed, all that kind of thing. And one of the fun things is that Kenny does have one of two pint-sized slasher masks, so there are two of them that you can find in Point Lookout. There's one here, and the other one I think is in the motel room somewhere. But yeah, Kenny does have one of those. So sorry kiddo, I need to wake you up. Here's your teddy bear. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Found your teddy bear.
Kenny Bear! You're the greatest!
You're welcome.
So hey, you can use this place as your hideout if you want. Hide from the folk out there, stash your stuff, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, what do you want to do now? You want to play a game? Like hide and seek or tag or something?
Yeah, I think you actually can. You can play hide and seek and tag with him if you really want to.
I didn't want to play with you anyway.
Sorry kid, I'm kind of busy. So yeah, now we've got a nice little player home here, and also I think everything's not marked as stealing anymore, because we have now befriended this child. Also got a poster for Ruzka the Wonder Bear, which is a circus bear that lives in a cave. It's one of the ghoulified bears, which I think I talked about when I did the Algoi video back in the day. But you know, this kind of story of what happened in the mine, it's not an uncommon story, and historically miners have endured some terrible working conditions. So the risks of tunnels collapsing, poor ventilation, the danger of inhaling dust or being exposed to heavy metals like lead. Poisonous gases are a common thing, especially in silver mines and coal mines. You know, those poor canaries that were used as an early warning system for bad air, because birds are more sensitive to toxic gases and the like. Interesting side note for that, if you do have a bird, especially parrot type like budgie or macaw or anything like that, if you use the non-stick Teflon coated pans, they give off a gas that doesn't affect us when they're heated up, but it can affect parrots and it can actually kill them. So, you know, birds are more sensitive to toxic air. So the whole thing with the canaries would be that they would stop singing, and if you didn't get them out of there quick enough, they would die. But that would happen quicker than it would for the people, so that's why they were used. And if you look at the Romans, the ancient Romans, and what they did for the mines, it was all slaves and lower class people that were used to operate the mines. Again, for very poor working conditions, little pay, no pay, and not much consideration if an accident was to happen. So it's no wonder that people think that Herzog Mine is haunted. Obviously the kid here is playing that up because it's keeping him safe. That's the reason. You know, he's here because the locals are spooked by this place and won't come into it, so it gives him somewhere where he's like, yeah, there's nothing scary about this place, I'm fine here. But by playing up the haunted factor with the voices and things, it keeps him safe as well. But, you know, that is quite a dark history for an employer to treat his employees so badly that they go on strike. And instead of handling that with, you know, negotiations or anything, he just blows them up with dynamite. A million tons, apparently. It probably wasn't quite that much, or there wouldn't be anything left of the mine. But, you know, and it's not really, you know, it's kind of it's a crazy situation, but you know that he's just like, well, if you don't like it, then you can just die. It's quite brutal. And then obviously, instead of facing the consequences for what he did and facing, you know, having to deal with the guilt of what he did, he took his own life instead. And it's the kind of thing that really does just lend itself to ghost stories, doesn't it? You know, most ghost stories don't originate from someone who was fairly happy and well adjusted when they died. It's almost certainly going to be something horrible happened to a person, and that's why their ghost is hanging about and things like that. So I thought it was a fun one because it's not one that I really have heard many people talk about or that people know about, is this little mine and kind of the story behind it. I don't know how Kenny found out the story behind it, whether it's something that had been talked about or he found a record somewhere. But I know there was a terminal somewhere, but I think it was a broken terminal. So don't really know how he learned the story, but he obviously knows the story and it does match up to what we see in the place. You know, I mean, there's a dumpster full of skeletons here. It's pretty messed up, no doubt about it. It is a really dark story to my mind, and definitely a spooky location. And I think especially, like, there's lanterns, but a lot of it is lit up by the glowing fungus more than anything else. You know, and these supports don't look too stable. I don't like being underground. I'm not really claustrophobic, but being underground in general I find a wee bit uncomfortable. Like, I remember when I was in high school we went to France and Belgium to look at a lot of the World War I sites, and some of them involved going through some of the tunnels that led between the trenches and things like that, and it was really uncomfortable for me. I didn't really particularly enjoy it, but there we are. But Kenny has found himself a safe haven here where he doesn't have to worry about getting attacked by any of the locals that don't like him, and because we're friends with him we can actually now use a shortcut to get in and out. So there's a ladder here that we can use to get in and out whenever we want to, and we can use that as a player home. You can store stuff there, you can sleep there, you can play hide and seek with the child if you would want to do that. But yeah, it's Point Lookout is it's one that it's definitely one of the best DLCs. I would say it's probably the best add-on for Fallout 3. Mothership Zeta is okay, but kind of weird. It has issues. Operation Anchorage is quite a different style, but I think Point Lookout really embraces this kind of dark, spooky atmosphere, and, you know, highlighting some different ways that radiation has changed people and stuff like that. So it's definitely a good one for the spooky season. You know, really interesting place to explore, and as you saw today, some interesting and spooky little locations that you can find and some stories that you can uncover. So hopefully you enjoyed that as we kind of end October. And I'll be back on Saturday where we're going to be talking about Assaultron, so hopefully you'll join me for that. And I appreciate the patience and support last week after everything happened. You know, when life decides to just throw a lot of things at you at the same time. So for myself and my family, we've had a lot of curveballs thrown at us last week, but things are moving in a positive direction now, so I'm really glad to be back, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.